There's much to discuss. What I actually wanted to talk about today, I've not been able to discuss. But it's important that at least our heart moves towards Imam Hussain, that we have this particular discussion. Because if we're not going to have this today, you're seeing that there's much confusion. What Amir al-Mu'mineen said, dhalal and dhulamat, darkness and confusion, surely this is the time of darkness and confusion. This is the time when people come and they say, look, one Maulana says one thing on the minbar, 2 days later another one says another thing, 180 degrees. What do we do? And this is not me who's saying it now. Go and look at it. Ibn Taus, when he mentions it, if you look at some of his ahadith, especially in Akhir al-Zaman, where Amir al-Mu'mineen gives 40, 50 signs before the dhuhr of the Imam. One of them, he says this as well. He talks about the last days. He talks about the misinformation. How do you know what haqq is and batil is? There's one simple formula. If a person brings you towards the ishq of Ahlul Bayt, then jump on that safina. And if a person, however big beard, big turban they have, it doesn't matter. If they're moving you away, putting shak in your iman on Ahlul Bayt, then know that they're Dajjal. There's no two other ways around it. And you'll see a lot of this increase as times go on. Okay, maybe at the moment it may not be the case. But as times go on, as generations go on, shak on, eventually Imam Ma'soom will become what? Like anyone else. And remember, even though in the past, yes, we've had things like this. There's been 4 different formulations of Shi'ism, right? And we know the academic discussions. I'm not here to discuss that. But people of ours, Aqidah, were always there from the beginning as well. Nor am I going to go into a discussion of ulama al-abrar. If you want, my PhD is there, read it. Books coming out, read it. The most important thing is this though, that in this day and age, the same ma'rifah that Habib ibn Madahir had, you should have. Why? Why doesn't the 12th Imam come? Ask yourself the question. Don't we have enough ayatullahs? 12th Imam doesn't need ayatullahs. 12th Imam needs Salman, Abu Dhar, Miqdad, Ammar, Maytham al-Tammar. That's what Imam means. Imam doesn't need at the moment fuqaha. We've got loads of them, alhamdulillah. Excellent. Imam doesn't need that though. Imam needs that person who, after being poisoned in Misr, if you look at it and see, Malik al-Ashtar, he was swooning like this. His wife asked him, said, Malik, I can see you're dying. I asked you a question 50, 60 years ago when we got married. What was the question? I can't remember now. Says, Malik, I asked you what ishq was. You never replied to me, Malik, but today I've understood what ishq is. He says, what is it? He says that you're swooning here and you're remembering your Ali. Replies, he says, what can I do? As I sit here, I can hear my Mawla from Masjid al-Kufa supplicating to his Lord. What is Ali for us? Ali is that person who takes us towards Allah. Malik is sitting there, how many thousands of miles from Iraq to Egypt, but Malik can hear. Why? Because Malik's connection is not here, Malik's connection is here. Ghaybat al-Kubra is good for us. You know why it's good for us? Because Imam's elite are being formed. Otherwise, if you remember, around the Prophet there were many munafiqeen. Many people were there. What's the milaq? What separates? Imam and Ma'soom separates. But in this day and age, it's important for our Imam to be there because it's sif. The munafiqeen go. Only those people who are pure remain. Remember what the Prophet said, Salam on my brothers. Sahaba turned around and said, oh, we your brothers? He says, no, you're not my brothers, you're my sahabi. You're my ashab. No, my brothers. Who are your brothers? Brothers are coming in Akhir al-Zaman. Why? They've not seen me, but they have iman over me. Imagine, if you're at that level, that you believe in your Imam as wajib al-ata', as Imam and Ma'soom, then what? You're connected, then what? Rasul, you're the brother of the Prophet. It's not a small thing. If it was a small thing, I'd say it's not a small thing. Your maqam is greater. So what does your Imam want? Imam wants those people who from here are connected. Doesn't mean physically. What's physics? Final thing I'll say. I'm going slightly over. I've been given the permission to go just slightly over from over there. But let me just tell you one more thing. Abu Basir was a blind. Keep this in mind. Abu Basir was a blind companion. Sixth Imam one day was sitting there. Abu Basir had come from Kufa, he'd come to Medina, right? As he comes into Medina, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is sitting in Masjid al-Nabawi. He says to one of his companions, he says, for everyone who comes through the door, ask them where Ja'far ibn Muhammad is. He says, okay, fine. Standing next to the door. One by one people are coming and he's asking, where's Ja'far ibn Muhammad, where's Ja'far? And people are not really giving much attention. At the back, Abu Basir is coming. Now, name is Abu Basir, but he was blind. Hitting his stick on the ground, coming forward. As he comes towards Masjid al-Nabawi, companion looks at the Imam, he says, Mawla, should I ask him as well? He says, yes. He says, but he's blind. He's blind. He says, ask him as well. Says, at that moment, Abu Basir walks in. The person comes and he says, do you know where Ja'far ibn Muhammad is? He says, yes, he's standing right next to you. He said, how do you know you're blind? He replies, he said, connection with the Imam is not with this eyes, it's with these eyes. And this is Ghaybat al-Kubra. Your connection with your Imam is not with these eyes, it's with these eyes. Look, that brings.